Joining us on the line right now, legal analyst Joe DiGenova, our good friend who's here every Monday when we're lucky. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Brian.
Good to have you back in the saddle. Let's talk about the Supremes. The Supreme Court has got, the way I count it, 8 big cases that must still come out, and their time is running out. So it seems like, every day between now and the end of the month, we could have some major ruling coming out.
Yeah, no, this is the time of the year when the big ones come out. Probably the last one will be the case involving Obamacare. And, that's a riverboat gamble. God only knows what Kennedy's going to do. So we'll see what happens.
All right, but hold on a minute. I mean, if you look at the law, if you're just looking at the law, that seems to be sort of an open and shut case.
Well, there's no doubt about it that the law is quite clear. And using ordinary legislative construction, which is the rules that judges look at, how do you construe a statute, the federal subsidies, the federal exchange is illegal, that you cannot pay subsidies to the 30-some states that do not have state exchanges under the statute. However, during the oral argument up there was all types of hemming and hawing about whether or not the court could interpret it a certain way to salvage the federal exchange for the 34 states. It's hard to tell. Given what Roberts did the last time when he caved into pressure from the White House, the White House is actually trying to influence this decision. You've seen what the president has done over the last couple of weeks, saying the court never should have taken the case. He's trying to influence the court because he was successful the last time. He got Roberts to change his vote at the last minute after pounding on him repeatedly, saying exactly the same thing, that the court couldn't possibly hold this unconstitutional.
Well, but see, here's the thing. I mean, the words have meaning, and the words are in the law.
I thought they did in the original case.
Well, but hold on a minute. I mean, how in the world can the Supreme Court come up with any kind of ruling that says, "Yeah, I know what the words say, but that's not what they meant"?
Well,
that means that the Supreme Court then is legislating.
Yeah, well, of course they've done that in the past. Rogers legislated in the original Obamacare case. He created a tax where no tax existed. The administration had said all along, this is not a tax, and he makes it a tax so he can save the statute. They could do the same thing here. They could say that it was simply a drafting error, that the clear intention of the statute was to cover it, and we're going to recognize that. Now, if they do that, if in fact they say that the language, even though the language is perfectly clear, that federal exchanges are not entitled to the subsidies, if they do that, if they said the language, even though it's murky, we're going to sustain the subsidies under the federal exchange, the Republicans, who ordinarily would be out of shape about it, some of them may sigh a sigh of relief. But if that happens, then the Republicans are stuck with this statute for 30 years. There's not going to be any way you change this unless you get a Republican president. The only way you get changes in this is if the court strikes down the federal subsidy. Then the president has to deal.
Joe, what's your sense? Which way do you think they're going to go?
Regrettably, I think they're going to sustain the statute.
I do too.
I have no confidence in Kennedy. I certainly have no confidence in the Chief Justice, who caved the last time under incredible public pressure from the President of the United States in an embarrassing display of the violation of the separation of powers. But this president doesn't care. Remember, he's not about constitutional government. He's about thuggery in government. The type of politics that this president has exercised since he took the oath of office in 2009 has been the most disgraceful, debilitating type of politics. And look at our country. Look where we are today. And look where we are racially today. The great healer has been the great divider.
Well, I get all that. Now, what about gay marriage? That's the other big decision.
Oh, they're going to sustain it. There's no way they're going to. What they could say, the states have a right to decide it, but they have. Here's the way they split the baby. They could say the states have a right to determine what a marriage is, and if they want to make it just between a man and a woman, they have the right to do that. However, they must recognize same-sex marriages from other states under the full faith and credit clause. That's where they could end up. They're either going to sustain same-sex marriage as a constitutional right under equal protection, or they're going to say states can do their own, but they have to recognize same-sex marriages from other states.
On sort of a related item, a transgender teenager
yes.
has filed a lawsuit, in Richmond, Virginia.
Right.
It is apparently a woman who identifies as a boy, a girl who identifies as a boy, and is upset because she can no longer use the boys' restroom.
Well, here's what I don't understand. The person's name is Gavin Grimm. He's 16 years old. She is 16 years old. Whatever you're supposed to say now. Bottom line is, it isn't clear from the stories on this what the plumbing situation is. They don't say what type of genitalia this person has. So she was designated female at birth, but has a male gender identity. So I'm assuming that the genitalia is female, or at least partially female. The story is, listen, all of these cases will be worked out by having some sort of accommodation. But one thing is clear, this person was allowed to use a private facility where they could go and do whatever they had to do during the day. Now the person says that they don't want to use the private facility because they're embarrassed. They want to be able to use the facility that they think they should go into. Well, to me, it's all about plumbing. If you've got male plumbing, you go to the male restroom. If you've got female plumbing, you go to the female restroom. If you have a gender identity and complex issues, you go to the private facility. If that accommodation is not sufficient, then, we're in la-la land.
That's separate but equal.
Well, what's wrong with that? It's a bathroom.
All right, Joe, let's see what else we got on tap here for. Oh, yeah. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is announcing a plan to crack down on fighting drugs. She says the drug problem in the District of Columbia has gotten out of control, and she's going to go after the drug suppliers. On one hand, this drives me nuts, Joe. On one hand, you've got a government which has said the gateway drug, marijuana, is okay. Knock yourself out. And then they're saying, oh, shock, now there's other drugs here, and we need to crack down on them.
Well, what you have here is cognitive dissonance. It's called cognitive dissonance. Marijuana, and of course the marijuana today is much more powerful than the marijuana from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. This stuff is terribly addictive. It destroys brain cells. It screws up IQ. But liberals and Democrats are just happy as clams making this stuff available. At the same time, they want to crack down on other drugs, thinking that people are going to differentiate and they're only going to do marijuana. Listen, here you have a city with 50 years of Democratic rule. Chicago's the same way, Baltimore, large black populations, destructions of their families. And what are they doing? They're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. They can change their enforcement policies all they want. There's a market out there. People are going to buy this stuff no matter what happens. And nothing's ever going to change until the culture in these communities changes, and it isn't going to change because the leadership for that doesn't exist. When's the last time you heard Muriel Bowser talk about the absence of men, the absence of fathers in the black family?
Nobody's talking about that.
You're never going to hear it. You're never going to hear it because these are the worst leaders in American history. These politicians in Baltimore, Chicago, and by the way, they're not all black politicians. Look at Rahm Emanuel. The guy couldn't stop a fight or a crime if he was standing there with the double-barrel shotgun. The leadership of Democrats in major cities is a disaster. 50 years of complete and total rule, and the places are a mess. And what do? They double down on failed policies. Look at this on the enforcement thing. This is what happens when a city is on the road to destruction. Nothing works in Washington except if you're Jeffrey Thompson and you know how to bribe public officials, you get what you want for your health care company.
Well, no, you're wrong. They still write traffic tickets very effectively. All right.
Good at that.
We're going to have to leave it there, Joe. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Guys, take care.